The Arctic wind howled against the side of the fishing vessel, a deep, bone-chilling cold seeping into every crevice of the ship. The sky, a swirling mix of grays and whites, hinted at an incoming storm. Captain Elias had spent years navigating these frozen waters, but something about this night felt different. The sea was too quiet, the ice too still. He stood at the edge of the deck, his gloved hands gripping the railing, eyes scanning the horizon. The rhythmic creaking of the boat was the only sound until a heavy thud shook the ship. At first, Elias thought it was ice breaking against the hull. But then came another thud, and another. Heavy. Purposeful. He turned sharply, heart pounding, and peered through the flurries of snow that danced under the dim deck lights. There at the stern stood a massive shape, nearly blending into the white landscape beyond. It was a polar bear. But something was different. This bear wasn't snarling or prowling like the ones he'd encountered before. It wasn't searching for food. It was looking straight at him. Elias took a cautious step forward, his breath visible in the freezing air. He'd heard of polar bears approaching humans before, but never like this. It was standing on its hind legs, front paws gripping the railing, as if trying to climb aboard. His instincts screamed at him to back away, but something in the bear's eyes made him hesitate. There was no aggression, no hunger, just urgency. Then he saw it, tucked against the bear's thick fur, cradled carefully in the crook of its massive arm, was a baby. A human baby. Wrapped in a tattered white blanket, the child's tiny face was barely visible against the snow. Elias's breath caught in his throat. His mind raced to make sense of what he was seeing. A polar bear, holding a baby, seeking help. The bear let out a low, rumbling sound, not a growl, but something softer, a plea. Elias's crew, drawn by the strange sounds, started to gather behind him, murmuring in shock. No one moved, no one knew what to do. The baby stirred, slightly, a weak cry escaping its lips. That was enough to break Elias's hesitation. He stepped closer, hands raised in a slow, non-threatening gesture. "It's okay," he murmured, not sure if he was talking to the bear or himself. "I won't hurt the baby." The bear remained still, watching him. Then, as if understanding his words, it shifted its weight, hoisting itself higher onto the ship. The entire vessel rocked under its massive form. The crew instinctively backed, away. But Elias stood firm. He had to know. He had to understand. Where had this baby come from? How had it survived the freezing Arctic? And why, of all things, had a polar bear taken it upon itself to seek human help? The answers were waiting, in the bear's deep, sorrowful eyes. But Elias wasn't sure he was ready for them. Elias's hands trembled as he reached forward, his mind still struggling to grasp the reality in front of him. The polar bear, massive and powerful, stood mere feet away, its breath visible in the icy air. And in its arm, the tiny baby whimpered, again its fragile voice barely audible over the howling wind. The crew remained frozen in place, whispering amongst themselves, their eyes darting between Elias and the bear. They were seasoned fishermen, used to the harshness of the Arctic, but none of them had ever seen anything like this. Elias forced himself to take another step, slowly, carefully. He didn't want to startle the bear or make it think he was a threat. "Easy," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're okay. The baby's okay." The bear blinked at him, its deep black eyes filled with something he never expected to see: trust. It shifted slightly, adjusting its grip on the child as if considering what to do next. Elias could see the baby more clearly now. Its tiny face was pale, its lips slightly blue from the cold. His heart clenched. The baby wouldn't survive much longer out in the freezing air. Taking a slow breath, Elias reached out his hands. "Let me help." For a long moment, nothing happened. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, with an almost human-like gentleness, the polar bear lowered the baby toward him. Elias hesitated for only a second before carefully cradling the child in his arms. The baby was light, too light. Its tiny fingers curled weakly around his glove. He could feel the cold radiating from its fragile body. "We need to get it inside, now," he said firmly, turning toward the crew. That snapped them into action. One of the deckhands, Marco, rushed forward, throwing open the door to the cabin. Another, Jonas, grabbed a thick wool blanket and held it out. Elias didn't waste a second. He wrapped the baby up and hurried inside, his heart pounding. As soon as he stepped into the warmth of the cabin, he knelt by the small heater in the corner, carefully unwrapping